Frank is the technical director for Wardell Armstrong, who's been involved in the excavation over at Carlisle as part of the Uncovering Roman Carlisle project. I'm not going to say anything else. I'm going to hand over to Frank while the technology is good. Thanks, Frank.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for listening, and this is just going to be a quick overview of where we are. Basically, the work is still ongoing, so we're working on it. Probably still got another 2 months, 3 months on the post-excavation side. So this will be, as of now, our latest thinking on the site. Oh, you wouldn't believe it, it's frozen. I'm trying to, here we go. Before I start, I suppose I better just plug our partners, the people who made this possible. Tullie House are putting on an exhibition that starts from next week onwards. The City Council being massively helpful. I'm Wardell Armstrong, obviously, and I can't forget to thank the Cricket Club because this project's on their land, and they've been more than accommodating since 2017. So just a big thank you for everyone associated with the Cricket Club. And obviously, the 2021 phase was funded by the Heritage Lottery Fund. So again, big thank you. Without them, there wouldn't have been this second phase on the site. So I'll get quickly into a sort of overview of where the site is for those who don't really know Carlisle and Roman Carlisle. So there's that orange square that I've overlaid. That's basically our site. Roman Carlisle is unusual because it's got two large forts. You've got the fort at Stanix, and then you've got the fort within Carlisle itself. The city of Carlisle was on the south side of the River Eden, and Stanix itself had a small civilian settlement outside of it. We're now starting to think that this small civilian settlement is a lot bigger. Our site, you can see there, it's basically would have been coming off what we believe was a Stane Gate. We've also got a minor road heading north towards Myocastle 66. So we've basically got a road junction. The river crossing in the Roman period, although we don't know for sure where it was, I think with the river courses constantly moving, it was broadly where the bridge currently is. So it's in quite prominent position. So the first phase of work started off as just a very low-key commercial archaeology project. So we were going to put 2 evaluation trenches down just to test the ground. A lot of people believed there wasn't much of a potential, given the fact that material was alleged dumped there and it'd been landscaped when Hardwick Circus was built, which is a big roundabout in the centre of Carlisle. I wasn't convinced. The tennis courts have been there from the early 1900s, so I believe there was some potential, but then it may have been terraced by the tennis courts. Anyway, that didn't turn out to be the case. So this small project discovered hypocaust, a Julia Domna inscription, so it got a huge amount of interest. The purpose behind this, I have to say, was the cricket pavilion for Carlisle gets flooded every 3 or 4 years now, unfortunately. So they basically want to move their pavilion to the higher ground. Luckily for us, possibly unlucky for the cricket club, maybe, they've decided to move it onto the site of this bathhouse complex. So this small excavation developed into basically a self-funding community project in 2017. I managed to fundraise some monies from the local population of Carlisle. The City Council came in to help. Fred Story, who owns Story Homes, put in some money. So from nothing, we've got this 8-week excavation. What you can see here is the size of the excavations we did in 2017. We then came back last year as part of this lottery. There were lots of questions about what we discovered in 2017, and this just gave us a superb chance to hopefully answer a few of them. We didn't know the full extent of the building. I thought there may be an earlier bathhouse, but we weren't sure. There was tantalizing evidence of 5th century occupation. We wanted to find more of that. So it was a really, really exciting research project with lots of things that we could possibly answer. I would say from the work we're doing now, it's been a great success. We have answered a lot of these questions, but with all projects like this, a load more questions are coming up. So you can see how the latest site partially overlay the 2017, but we were hoping to get the top and the bottom of the bathhouse. And we also extended to the south to try and get more of this potential Roman road. So anyway, the first phase now that we've got on our site is Hadrianic. From the stuff we've just done, we've got good evidence now that there was a Hadrianic bathhouse on the site, to the south of which we've got this minor road heading towards Maio Castle 66. So obviously this road was heading towards the Maio Castle, so that ties it in, because before the construction of Hadrian's Wall, there would have been basically no point for this road. We've got no finds really from the late 1st century. So it all ties in really well with this Hadrianic phase. We've got a really well constructed road and we've got strip buildings either side of it. So this is a hatched plan of the Hadrianic bathhouse. This is basically a block plan bathhouse that were basically almost like a catalogue bathhouse for that period. They're all the same. You can look at examples at Bewcastle, Chester's, Ravenglass. They're all built by a military architect, probably all from the same book. So although we've only got tiny fragments of this bathhouse, I've been able to give this best guess design of the potential footprint. It's been obliterated by the 3rd century bathhouse and then the 4th century remodelling. And what those two phases didn't destroy, medieval robbing removed. So this is it. This is a chunk of our Hadrianic bathhouse. We had a section of flagging. So this was the main evidence, the only bit of upstanding masonry we have of that building. So you can see how it was incredibly handy that these bathhouses are so formulaic to come up with that ground plan I've just shown you. And then this is one of my favourite photographs from the site. This is from 2021, and this shows you a section of Hadrianic hypocaust beneath the later Severan concrete floor that then got the Severan hypocaust on top of it. So they've literally built on top of this Hadrianic building. This is the only area where we actually had a chance to look at it, because one of the, well, my main philosophy about this was, because it was a big community project, we only wanted to touch the bits of archaeology that had already been largely damaged by robbing or 12th century quarrying. Where we had really good preserved Roman archaeology, really nice stratigraphy, we've left it well alone. That's been preserved for basically future generations to look at it. With the Hadrianic bathhouse, we've got this lovely section of Roman road. This is a photogrammetric image of it, beautifully constructed. This is the road we believe is coming off the Stane Gate and heading towards Maio Castle 66. It's about 4 meters wide, so it's relatively narrow for a main Roman road, but it works fine as a minor Roman road. Interesting things to note on this photograph. North is top, south is bottom. We've got a nice ditch along the south side. There's a sequence of 3 ditches actually. And on the south side, we have post pads and evidence for timber buildings. On the north side, we had ovens from 2017, just off this photograph. So basically, it's a really nice picture of a Roman road with strip buildings coming off it. the finds we've got from this phase, this sequence, lots and lots of animal bone. I think 80% beef, lots of ribs. So basically Roman fast food. There's amphora, there's flagons. So basically fast food restaurants either side of a strip building. We had quernstone, so there's bakery. So it just points to really nice, busy, vibrant little side street. This is just another view of it. And I don't know if some of you have noticed those huge cobbles. Well, these boulders are some very strange late 4th century construction that's actually been built on top of the road. It's not unusual to get people using the Roman roads when they've gone out of use as really good hard standing. But the unusual thing this is, whatever this structure is, it goes out of use pretty quickly. And then we've got a very late surface actually on top of it. So it reverts to being a road again, which is quite unusual. This is a nice slot we excavated across the Roman road. So you can see the really nice agger going across it, which is just typical for a Roman road. You can see this late structure, these huge boulders that were cut into the side of it. But you can also see the sequence of roads going down. So we've got over 1 meter of stratigraphy here, where just one road's been replaced, remodeled, another section of cobbling, a bit of clay, a bit of soil, more cobbles. So it's created this really nice sequence of, I think we have 6 road surfaces and 3 ditches. Phase 2. So this Hadrianic activity seems to come to an abrupt end in the very early 3rd century. This period is really significant in Carlisle. There's been lots of things known about for years suggesting something really important happens. This sort of Severan period, Carlisle gains its civitas status, its civic status, so it would then have its own forum, magistrates. We've got evidence of these big buildings being built in Carlisle. It's been this site that has just allowed me to sort of pull all these things together. What people haven't really done is tied all that with actual Septimus Severus being based in York at this time. So you're looking at, you know, the years 208, 209, 210, 11. This is the period where basically they were campaigning up in Scotland. Septimus Severus based himself in York. He brought his whole family with him. The imperial court would have been based in York for those years. There's something quite significant happening. Later on in this talk, I'll mention again the fact we have imperial stamped tiles in Carlisle. There's a fragment, I think, from Vindolanda. I know there's been one from Corbridge. There's a handful from Carlisle. These things are quite significant. But here we've got over 25 actually found in situ. So these are made by the imperial court for, well, the emperor. They're quite different to legionary stamp tiles or auxiliary stamp tiles. These are imperial stamp tiles. This is a dedication slab that Dr. Roger Tomlin has had a look at, and he believes it's of Julia Domna, and it would have been in the gable end or a prominent location in this building. So again, it's another link to this Severan build. Just as an aside, the pottery and the coins again point to this. So all the finds, the stuff we know from historical accounts is all pointing to this sort of Severan build, and having this inscription was just the icing on the cake. Again, beautiful little silver denarius of Julia Domna. I just thought I'd show you an image of the lady. So from 2017, this was my best guess. As you can see in plan, it looks nothing like that Hadrianic bathhouse. I call it a bathhouse, but I'm not sure if it is technically a bathhouse anymore. It's a monumental building with heated rooms. We know there's furnaces for the underfloor heating, but to say it's a bathhouse, I may have to change that label. It doesn't fit in with any conventional bathhouse plan I've been able to look at. So yeah, it's quite an enigmatic building. It's huge. It'd be one of the buildings, well, it's one of the largest buildings in Roman Carlisle. And when you see the scale of these walls, it is truly monumental in nature. So that was 2017. This is 2022. You can see how this building's grown dramatically. So it's now something that's over 50 meters, 40 meters at least. So basically the only side that we've fixed is the southern side. It's heading to the east, it's heading to the west, and it's still carrying on into the north, into the bank. Levels of preservation are very hit and miss, but we've just got enough stretches of actual in situ wall, robbed out wall, wall footing to put together this plan. And again, it just shows the Hadrianic road. One nice thing is we were looking for the drain. That's why we excavated the slot across the road in that location. We missed it because what we didn't know at the time, the actual drain turns to run parallel with the road rather than going across it. So we excavated that slot, back-breaking work, looking for the drain, which we never found. Luckily, we spent a few weeks ends after the main project had finished, and we did actually find the drain. So this is a nice view of one of these Severan walls. This is from 2017. The foundations are huge. They're about 1.50 meter deep, really well built, about 1.20 meter wide. Here you can see the hypercore stacks. And another thing just to have a look at on this shot is the 4th century bathhouse. You can see there's a stretch of curving wall built. It's far less well built, but this is one of the few bits of this 4th century building we found. So this is a view of that Severan wall. You can see the 4th century wall curving on top of it. There was a little slot we excavated through the well-preserved demolition layer. And our thinking now is this demolition, it's so flat. I just thought it was a really nice layer of roof, wall plaster, vaulting tubes. But I'm now starting to think with the little bits of evidence we've got of this late, very late 4th, 5th century occupation, this may actually be a very crude surface of potentially 5th century occupation on the building. This is another shot from 2022. There you can see some of that flagging. That's another little bit of the Hadrianic bathhouse. Either side of it, we've got 2 parallel walls that form part of the Severan bathhouse. The one to the north, which is my left, it's still got the rubble foundation in situ. They've removed all the building stone. The one to my right has been totally robbed away. So all we have there is a construction robber trench, basically. You can see in the far section, the natural, which is a sort of reddish brown, and you can see it's been cut by these robber trenches. So they've robbed the walls, and then in the 12th century, they've quarried what wasn't robbed in the 5th century. So we've just got little islands of survival. On the edge of this photo, you can see the white bands. They're concrete Roman floors in situ going round what is a square tank. So the tank's been removed, but it's just left this vertical sided square hole. We don't know if it was a plunge pool or it may have been a cistern for storing water. We just don't know. This again, this is the very north of our site. And I was looking for the north wall of the bathhouse. We clipped this and then actually discovered it's a corner. It actually headed off, but it's been robbed. So this was the evidence that the actual building's bigger than we originally thought. So basically you can see a bit of concrete floor surviving in that slot we excavated. When we took the soil down on the other side of the wall, we came onto another Roman floor. So this is an internal wall within the same building. These are the imperial stamped tiles. Like I said, over 25 now. Beautifully made things. Where they were made, we don't know, but there's known tileries at scale stuff. There was one at Brampton, potentially in Carlisle. There is clay locally. But the interesting thing about these are these stamps. There's two forms, and they've used a metal stamp. So this is another link to this imperial court. These are incredibly rare finds. Another thing that was really nice about these was a massive amount of them had animal footprints. People get very excited. We've got human feet, child footprints, roe deer, cat and dog. Really lovely group, and obviously thumbprints as well. The vaulting tubes is another unusual aspect. It's a North African original building technique where you can build big vaulted roofs with very little timber, because obviously in places like Libya and Morocco, timber was in short supply. So they come up with this. It would have probably been very useful for insulating as well, because they're hollow. So you form an arch with these, you then put cement on. In some places, you then have a second layer of these vaulting tubes on top of them. It's a very quick and efficient way to build basically a dome over a building. Another bit of this building we got was just one side of the main furnace room. In the foreground, this is backfill from another massive robber pit where they've removed the other side of the wall. So what you're looking at here is the inside view of the furnace room. You can see the springers from the arch in the foreground there, massively heat affected. We've got a drain leaving the furnace, and one idea for having a drain come out the furnace is possibly at this point would have been a big hot water boiler. This may be the drain if you wanted to drain the water system for the hot water, because obviously it was heating the air in the underfloor heating, but it would also have been heating the hot water tanks for the plunge pools. These are the drains. This was 2021 again. Beautifully constructed drains. One of them, the first one's possibly Hadrianic. We've then got the Severan one coming in from the side. This is the drain from the furnace room I've just shown you. And there was a third one that's been totally robbed out to the side of it. So this is a point where three drains joined. These drains have been extensively robbed. The dating for this robbing is after the 4th century, but before the 12th century. This is a generic domed Roman building, bathhouse complex that I've just found off the internet. It's not the building we're seeing here. We just haven't had time yet to do any reconstruction drawing, but this just gives you the flavour of what these domed roofs would have looked like. With the glass windows, obviously a bathhouse, glass windows are kept to a minimum because you want to keep the heat in, but we have got a lot of glass from this site. And what I've just been told today from the chemical analysis is the window glass is all recycling old glass. So that's potentially been done on site. The glass isn't being imported. They're basically just reusing glass that was kicking about Carlisle. So the third phase that we've now got is our 4th century building. There's very little left of this. It's more the material than the actual building itself. The dating comes from the pottery and the huge amount of coins we've got from this period. So one thing that the thinking is going, this building may not even be a bathhouse. It's a reuse of the Severan monumental building, but as what we currently don't know. Another thing, going back to when I was talking about its location, it's between, you know, the two big forts of Carlisle, Stanix with the Alla Petriana, and Carlisle itself, which by this point was more of an armoury. So a very important individual would have been based in Carlisle, which would have been the prefect, who would have been the second or third most important person in Roman Britain. This person may have needed a posh building outside of the fort to live in, possibly here, we don't know. It could also have served another role, maybe collecting taxes, or we just don't know, but there's a huge amount of coin loss in this building. Not much food being consumed by the lack of animal bone or general rubbish, and very little pottery. So here's this curving section of wall again. This is the best bit of our 4th century building. It's in amongst the Severan building, so it's a weird picture of bits of it being demolished, bits of it being used. So it's hard to imagine what this building would have looked like. There's bits of Roman concrete being reused in some of this. So chunks of the actual vaulted roof must have been destroyed, or it may have fallen down, we don't know, and been reused in the rebuild. We've got no tile, which is odd. So how this building was roofed, we just don't know. There's so little of it left. I think it's been either dismantled in the 5th century, or it's just been the victim to this 12th century quarrying. It's hard to say. As I said, it's built amongst the ruins, and this shot here, for me, is just superb. It just gives you an idea of, well, the decline of the Roman Empire. You had these lovely concrete surfaces with these imperial stamped tiles forming the hypocaust stacks. With this system being in use probably 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, soot accumulates. When the building's properly maintained, you would have had slave children crawl between the stacks with, in effect, the Roman version of a dustpan and brush, removing all this soot to keep the system working. Here, you can see the system's been totally neglected. These soot layers are building up, and you've got a sequence of hypocaust stacks just literally built on top of soot. So you've got one phase of repair on a lower layer of soot, and then you've got a second repair further up. So I just love that view. These are the Severan stacks sitting on their concrete floor. This is the other side of that later wall. You can see one of the few floor slabs that was left on the site that we had, that's been left in situ. The heat, the way it affects these towers is quite incredible. Mostly they've survived, but you see a lot of them really heat affected. In some places they've been replaced by sandstone stacks, which have just totally been eaten away by the incredible heat. This is another view from 2017 that shows the concrete floors, and there you can see massive areas of robbing. You can see in the centre of this photo that semicircular area of black soil surrounded by the lighter brown. That's one of these medieval robbing pits. Immediately in front of it, you can see we've got another springer of an arch for another furnace, which uses recycled Roman concrete from the vaulted roof. 5th century. This is what I was really interested about in 2017. The dark earths were a passion for me in Carlisle, and in 2017, I really focused on seeing what we can tease out of these homogeneous, beautifully humic soils that build up on, well, Roman towns throughout the UK. In Carlisle, we have 1 metre, sometimes 2 metres of this dark earth that starts building up in the late 4th century and then just blurs into the medieval period. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but very little structural evidence. There's no stone buildings, it's all timber. They don't leave any finds because we go back to being aceramic. So it's very hard to find features that you can assign to this period, but we know it was happening. St Cuthbert visited this place. and there were still Roman fountains going in the 6th century. So we know Carlisle was still a functioning town that would have been familiar to a Roman person 200 years after the formal end of Rome. So coming back to this, I think this is our best evidence. This is a very crude surface that's been built in amongst the ruins of the 4th century bathhouse. It's been then heavily pitted, and these pits are mid-12th century in date. Here again, the walls of these drains have been robbed, but they've been robbed at a point where soil then accumulated. Then they were robbed again in the medieval period. So you can see on this, we've got tip lines on this really dark black cut. There's a big pit, but you can see it clearly overlying an earlier layer of dark earth that's within the robbed out drains. So the sequence here is drains built, drains added to, drains go out of use, potentially in the late 4th century. Drains are then robbed, some point after the late 4th century. Soil builds up, and then it's robbed again in the 12th century. The views here are just a snapshot of the things I've been looking for to try and actually show you this is the 5th century occupation. This is what it looks like. So the things we're finding are basically stone, big stones laid perfectly flat. They're not just random, they're post pads for timber buildings. We've only seen a few of these, but there's enough to suggest we have got some timber buildings on the site. So these, the two bottom views are of post pads. The section with the T shape, that was where I was taking down the dark earth deposits, these soil layers that seal the Roman, very carefully in spits. We were heavily sampling them to see, was there a difference? Was the paleo-environmental content different from spit 1 to spit 2? Unfortunately, it was pretty much homogeneous. There were no obvious differences. We laser scanned them. We did some drawing traditionally with permatrace and a pencil. So we tried a variety of techniques on it to see, is there any easy way to pull things out of these dark earth deposits? And there weren't any. It's just really hard to excavate. The only way I believe it works is in big open areas where you are literally taking it down in 5 centimetre spits, similar to the sort of work they did in Roxeter years ago. It has to just be done on a big scale, really carefully. And then one of our few finds is this beautiful bronze hairpin. That again is a mid-5th century. The 5th phase is the 12th century. I think that's Henry II there. So we know there were still upstanding Roman buildings in Carlisle. There's Norman chronicles that talk of a temple still standing that was still roofed in the 11th century. So we know there would have been plenty of lumps and bumps and big chunks of buildings still about Norman Carlisle. So it's not crazy to think in the 12th century this was still the case. Obviously, to build a cathedral, to build a castle, they needed lots of stone. So I imagine the buildings within Carlisle were hit first for building stone. Our site is on obviously the north side of the River Eden, so it would have been more problematic to get all the stone across the river. But at some point in the 12th century, they needed stone in such quantities that it was worthwhile robbing the site. So we had a mass of huge pits. Some of them are pits, others are so large, I call them basically quarry pits. This one here, that's a 2 metre ranging pole. This one had some red gritty ware from the fill. So that's the earliest medieval pottery you get in Carlisle. Mid to late 12th century. Before that, we basically currently believe Carlisle is aceramic. So we've had these fragments, which is just dating it. And it, by luck, it ties in with when they're building the first city walls around Carlisle. So that's an interesting project in its own right to see with the petrological work we're doing on the stone on this site to see, can we link it to some of the stone in the city walls or even in the cathedral or the castle. Again, for any student of archaeology, this is a beautiful section. If you wanted to teach anyone how to draw a section and archaeological stratigraphy and cuts, it gets no better than this. So you've got the light brown, which is basically the natural we have on our site. You've got this lovely little medieval rubbish pit cutting into it. But to the right of it, we've got a huge robber trench. You can see that vertical line going down. That's one of the walls of the Severan Bathhouse that have been robbed out. So it's just a beautiful section. And when I was mentioning about these huge pits that are almost too big to be called a pit, this is what I call the quarry pits. So you can see the light orangey brown natural at the bottom. Everything above that is backfill within one of these huge quarry pits. This is to give you the scale of the stratigraphy on this site. It's incredible. It's proper urban archaeology. So here we've got 3 meters of archaeology, and we never bottomed this quarry pit. Another thing that I really liked, this was from 2017, with this robbing, we had this almost discard pile where they've picked the good stuff, but then they've just slung the bits of stone that basically weren't worth robbing or carting into Carlisle. So it's just a snapshot, you know, a moment in time. And the finds, like I say, the post-ex process is really just getting into gear now. This is one of the imperial stamps, literally as it came out the ground. The coins, one of the things that comes from this site, we think it's 422 coins we've now got. It's the largest assemblage from any site in Carlisle, which is incredibly unusual when you think we've excavated probably 20% of this site, and within that 20%, the well-preserved elements are still left in situ. So we've only actually sampled a tiny percentage of this site. Huge amount of coins, and you can see from this sample, incredibly well preserved. So it's one of my passions, looking at the coins and the work. So the coin analysis is probably ahead of the game because I've done this myself. So this gives you an idea of percentage coin loss by period. So you can see the 34% and the 13%, that's all 4th century. That's the House of Constantine. So you can see basically over half of the coin loss is concentrated into about 20 years of the life of this site, which is an incredible percentage. We have got some late 1st century coins of Trajan. There's one Sestertius and Nerva, but they're all really worn. These coins would have been in circulation for a long time, so they could have been lost anytime right up to the 3rd century, really. I just think this shows it even better. This is number of coins, so you can see 81 coins from 330 to 348. It's an even tighter group than that, really. So it just shows you Hadrianic occupation, Severan occupation. The 26 and 29 coins from 261 to 296, they're barbarous radiates. This is where we had hyperinflation. The country was at civil war. So those spikes, I think, are more to do with coins losing their value. They were just being dropped and they were valueless. So really, we've got this, if you take that into account, quite a level profile until the 4th century building. The mints, again, is quite interesting. As you'd expect, German and French mints dominate. We've got a lot of locally produced radiates and a few unusual ones from Croatia, Greece, and Italy. The Alla Petriana that I've briefly mentioned, that was this crack 1,000-strong cavalry regiment based in Stanix that would have been under the control of this prefect, this guy who was the third most important person in Roman Britain, possibly in charge of the whole wall zone. Actually finding any epigraphic evidence has been really hard. I think there's a handful of inscriptions of the Alla Petriani that exist. We've been incredibly lucky. We've added 2 more to this. The stone is part of a gravestone, and you can see Petriana, and the squiggly line, that's the Roman for 1,000, the Mila. So that was a lovely find, and that came from the 12th century stone discard pile. So just by chance, it was a stone that they considered not worth taking away. And the lead seal to the right would have been used on military documents. And you can see the ALPE, the Alla Petriana. Again, that's the second, I think, the second known lead seal of the Alla Petriana. So we were just so lucky to find these 2 things. Imperial stamped tiles again. The one on the bottom left I love because it's actually somebody's footprint. Somebody's physically trodden on the imperial stamp. I don't know if this is an act of defiance. I think it's deliberate. They've actually put their foot and they've pressed down with their foot deliberately over the IMP. And this is a community project, and the tastiest find was that imperial stamped cake that we had baked by some of the volunteers. Little cat print. This bead, we got very excited about it. Very unusual for Roman, but the chemical analysis has just come back. So instead of being Roman, we now know that this glass is now post-medieval, unfortunately. We had parchment ware, pottery, lots of hairpins. This is a beautiful little bone needle. It wasn't all Roman. What you can see there with that diamond-shaped thing, that's a heraldic 12th, 13th century pendant. From the Severan phase, we've got lots of rings. I think we've got 10 intaglio. You can see this small intaglio actually in that iron ring. That's a silver ring that's lost its intaglio. I think we had 8 from the drains. So obviously when they stick the stone in the ring, they're stuck with a vegetable-based glue. When you wear your rings in the bathhouse in a hot, sweaty environment, the glue fails. So people would have been sat on the toilets or in the pools. The intaglio's dropped off, gone in the drains, and we found it in 2021. These were the drains being excavated. With the volunteer side, which I've got to mention, this phase we had over 200. With both phases, we had 400 people participate. I think they've given 1,500 person days of help on this. It's incredible, and it's still going on. It's not just the excavating. We've got people helping us during the post-excavation process, working on databases. So for myself, it's just a lovely project to bring people in on. And it's also fun. It was incredibly hard work. I've not calculated how many wheelbarrows full of backfill we've removed, but this brings a smile. We had no dinosaur bones, but we actually found a plastic dinosaur. So what I want to say is thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something, and thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Frank. Can I encourage people to give an emoji round of applause or an actual one from where you're sat? That's great.
Can I stop sharing now? You
can do, yes. Thank you very much. It's interesting. We bookended the day with plastic dinosaurs. For those who were on the call this morning, looking at the excavations at Benwell in people's gardens, there was a small plastic dinosaur found there as well. So we seem to have bookended the day with dinosaurs.
Brilliant.
Fabulous. Thank you for that, Frank. I'm going to go straight to the chat because there's a couple of comments and questions in there. Thank you for people for popping stuff in there already. Let's have a look. We'll go straight down to so Marius is asking, might the roof material indicate that there were few trees available on the west side? This is when you were talking about the Hadrianic drains, I think it was, and the Severan drain.
Well, if we're going back to the Roman period, there were big forests around Carlisle, like Inglewood. So I don't think there would have been a shortage of timber in the 3rd century period.
Okay.
And obviously we've got timber could come up the River Eden or down the River Eden. So I don't think there would have been a shortage of wood, because in the other fort in Carlisle, you've got whole timber phases. So, you know, there's plenty of timber. The amount of timber used in the turf wall as well is huge. So I don't think that was a reason. Okay, Marius, you raised your hand. Would you like to unmute and just add to your question?
It was related to the dome roofs, basically.
Sorry.
So why would they make those dome roofs and not anywhere else?
Well, they are used in other places. There's some in Chester, and what I'm thinking, again, the domed roof could be, I didn't mention, this Severan connection, Septimus Severus, comes from Libya. If he's bringing his architects with him, they would have been familiar with North African types of building. This type of vaulting tube comes into Britain, and it's used in the 3rd century. But I think Carlisle in Wales, I think, has some building. They are known. This isn't unique, but I think this is possibly one of the earliest dated examples of this type of building technique. It's not unusual for people from different parts of the empire to bring things with them. When the North Africans are coming to Carlisle, they bring their tagines with them. It's a type of cooking vessel. So we've got them in Carlisle in context. So I like to think of it as another little piece linking it with the imperial court.
Very interesting, no?
Yeah.
Thanks, Marius. The next question is from Catherine Jarvis, and the question is, has a building this size been seen or found elsewhere along the line of the wall? And that question was asked when you were talking about the 12th century work. Oh,
I
Catherine,
don't know.
Sorry, Frank, can you answer that question? Or Catherine's actually raised her hand, so I might ask Catherine to add to that question, if that's okay. If Catherine would like to unmute and ask your question, and then Frank can answer.
Yeah, just thinking about the size of the potential timber building that was found at Vindolanda when Hadrian possibly stayed at Vindolanda. I'm just thinking about the sheer size of the building. Would you know if it's similar to that at all, or anything else along the wall, just out of interest?
I've been comparing it to stone buildings, and the only stone buildings, well, other than Hadrian's wall itself and the bridges, there's no actual thing you call a building anywhere on the wall. Like the basilica type building at Bird Oswald would fit inside this. So it's a huge building for the frontier zone. I don't know of anything. You probably have to go down to Chester or York to find something of a similar scale.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Thanks for asking that. Next in the chat, Jane Gibson, yes, gosh, why did they lose so many coins? And then further down, this was about the fines in the drains, and that's probably because fewer people fancied going down to retrieve them, which I can, I can understand that. And then we've got some nice comments in, brilliant dig, excellent talk, thank you, Frank.
Okay.
Can I just ask, with a show of hands, emoji hands or your actual ones, who was involved in the dig as a volunteer? Yeah, I can see. Brilliant. So Anna, we've got Ollie and Jan and Nick. Oh, we've got Nick and Claire. Brilliant. Nick, can I just bring you in at this point, please? Is that okay? So Nick Henderson is the development officer for Hadrian's Wall and works alongside John Scott for well, relatively short period of time. I'm thinking about legacy and what happens after this project, Nick, and I know you've got maybe something to contribute there. Would you be able to just unmute and say a few words? You're still muted, or we can't hear you. Yeah, maybe just we need to plug anything in. If not, we'll come back to you. No, can't hear you. Okay, I'm going to hold you. Wait till you get your audio sorted. I'm going to go back to Frank and say, Frank, what next in Carlisle?
Well, this is exhausting, so I'm just trying to finish this. The cricket club still need to actually build the cricket pavilion. So I'm hoping with that gives us an opportunity to look at another bit of the site. So, but that obviously depends on the cricket club getting funding and getting the cricket move. But so there will be a chance to have a look at another bit of the site because they have to build the cricket pavilion. So that'll have a look, that'll have an impact on the bit of the site we've not looked at. So all the significant stuff we found in the ground is going to be preserved in the ground. So that's where this has really helped the development of the site. So these areas, we know the levels we can go down to, we know where the big medieval robbing quarries are. So the really interesting stuff can be preserved in the ground. Obviously, I'd love to dig all of it, but it's that's beyond. And so for the time being, we've got the legacy that will be happening now that's real. It will be the exhibitions in Tullie House. So it will be opening up. I think there's a sneak preview this weekend. So I imagine the exhibition will be going live in the next few weeks. So right. Anyone's interested, please go to Tullie House. We've put on a really nice show to show some of the findings, and I'm looking forward to the weekend. So that's one legacy. The other side of it is these presentations I've been given. We've got the Roman Finds group coming to Carlisle. So that'll be a weekend event we're putting on that will be showcasing the bathhouse. So the legacy sort of does go on, but as for actually digging holes in the ground,
yep.
I haven't got a crystal ball, but I'd love to see something happen.
Wouldn't we all? For the purposes of people on this call who might be interested in all of the things you've mentioned, is there anywhere people can go to find out what you've just said? Is there any sort of website, or is it a case of you know, can people get in touch with you? Or
the Tullie House website would be if people want to learn about the exhibition and events, Tullie House are putting that on, and I also think the anniversary events for Hadrian's Wall that's going on, they are also promoting these events. So if you go onto their website, it should be giving people an idea of things going on related to the bathhouse in Carlisle.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant. Nick, I've heard you some scuffly noises, so I think your audio might be working. Do you have anything to chip in?
Is that working?
Yes, yep.
I imagine, to be honest, I think Frank's sort of covered everything. But yeah, we've got the there's as a part of the legacy of it, there'll be artifacts from the excavation will be incorporated into some of the permanent displays within Tullie House as well. So that'll be sort of some of the kind of permanent legacy, including a lot of those sort of biographies, the artifacts, whereby we've had volunteer sessions at Tullie House, whereby the volunteers who discovered these have provided sort of their own background, what it meant to them, and that side of things, which I think would be quite interesting. And we've got a huge amount of recorded material. There's been some YouTube videos produced as well by volunteers too. But yeah, it'll be through the it's 5th of March. I think the exhibition is launching at Tullie, which is sort of this Saturday for the. And then afterwards, during the summertime, we'll have a touring exhibition going around at least 6 community venues in Carlisle, including Carlisle, sort of like the sort of library, city library. And then that'll be traveling around sort of during the summertime, and you can find the details on that. These will be posted to the Tullie House website, and we'll be putting out press releases throughout sort of the project too. We've also, as Frank said, it's 6th and 7th of May, I believe, is the Roman Finds Group conference as well at Tullie House.
That's That's brilliant. Thank you, Nick. You kept referring to we'll be doing this. For people who know Nick, they know that his contract, current contract, working with alongside John, is coming to an end quite soon. Nick, can you just kind of tell people what your next role will be and why you've been sort of referring to we will be doing this as we go forward, please?
Yeah, I always feel like anything Hadrian's Wall, it's always a we. It's sort of everything kind of happens with everybody else. But yeah, I'll be moving after my initial role with as development officer for the wall, which has been an absolute privilege. Will come to an end starting November 2019 for that, and then I'll be moving into a role as a regeneration officer at Carlisle City Council, but with the Hadrian's Wall kind of within the portfolio. So I'll still be part of assisting Hadrian's Wall partnership for quite a lot of projects. For example, like the 1900th anniversary. I'll pop a link to the 1900th anniversary pages as well in the chat, just for anyone. There's an amazing array of events going on for that, including a lot of the Uncovering Roman Carlisle ones. As part of the legacy as well, it's worth noting Carlisle Cricket Club's the future development on site. Their phase 2 includes quite a large exhibition and engagement space. So there'll be chatted over with sort of Mike, who's one chair at the club as well. This will incorporate aspects of the Uncovering Roman Carlisle dig, and hopefully long term we'll have interpretation on the site as well, so people who are coming can see kind of where the layout was and where the excavation was happening. We've also got there's 3D scans that are available online. We've got sort of a time lapse of the dig if anyone wants to sort of. The Benny Hill theme works quite well with it because sort of everything's going quite quickly. And in future we'll have Carlisle. I think there's a number of other activities. For the Roman Roads group, for example, is going to be doing some scans in Rickaby Park, which is across sort of from where the cricket club is. And also I think there's appetite for more kind of exploration in future, although that'll be something that we'll be working up kind of behind the scenes for a while probably.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Nick. That was really, there was a lot in there. So thanks for contributing. Thank you to Claire Furlong for popping in the Tullie House website. That's brilliant. Thanks for sharing that. So people can go there and see when the exhibition will be on, which I think Nick said starts on Saturday. Lee's asking, potential digs, will this be open for volunteers from WALCAP? Absolutely. You guys vote with your feet. You do what you want to do. All we do is provide opportunities and you guys just sort of go between whatever you want to do. So yes, and if as WALCAP, as you know, if we can signpost people to new projects and any way of keeping your skills involved in the wall and maintaining your enthusiasm, then we will do that. So absolutely, if we get note of any other digs coming forward, then I will push that towards you guys. Like I say, you vote with your feet.
I think we had quite a few WALCAP volunteers as well involved in the dig this past season. So thanks to them if there's anyone on the call as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Nick. I've gone through the chat and asked all of the questions. So now we've got a little bit of time if we want to. We don't have to, we vote with our feet, but we dig with our trowels. It's our mantra. I like that, Neil. Thank you. So now we can open up the floor. If people want to raise an emoji hand or a real hand, then I will invite you to unmute and you can ask a question, make an observation. If you've spotted somebody on the call that you just want to say hello to, then that's fine as well. Does anyone have, well, you two stop it, Neil and Lee. You're just having your chat between you about your trials. If anyone would like to ask a question of Frank while we've got him, that's the key thing while Frank's here, then please raise a hand. Yeah, Jan, would you like to unmute? Or I can ask you to unmute. There we go. I know you said you guys were involved in the dig and you had a good experience. There you go.
Can you hear me, Kerry?
Yes.
Hello.
Just to say that we've been trying to link up the techniques that we've learned under the SSD project with WALCAP with what's been going on at the bathhouse. So we've taken samples from the bathhouse and we've been trying to look at these stone characteristics. And we've got some really exciting results, which won't go into now, but we're preparing a report for Frank that should be ready fairly soon. And yeah, it's been really good.
You were stars.
You too, Frank.
That's brilliant. Thanks, guys. I didn't know you would obviously didn't know you were doing that, because Jan and Ollie are volunteers on WallCap as well. The SSD, for anyone who's not familiar, that Jan referred to there was as part of WallCap. We've got two strands. One is looking at sites on the Heritage at Risk Register along Hadrian's Wall and doing lots of investigative work on those sites. And the second area, the SSD, is stone sourcing and dispersal. So we're interested in where all the stone came from to build the wall and where that stone has gone to since. So looking at the source geology, the quarries, the type of stone that was used in different locations, the size and shape of different stones in different parts of the wall structure, and also then looking at where those stones have gone to into private buildings and farmsteads. And we've got one particular landowner on the call now who's just said, yeah, have access to my farm, go and find as much stone as you can. So that's the SSD. So that was going to be one of my questions actually, Frank, was about the geology and the source geology and the source quarrying, or the source quarries rather, the source of that stone. Do you have any information on that, apart from what Jan's obviously just alluded to there?
Well, I will do when they tell me what they found out, but I'm really sad that stuff excites me as well. I need to get out more, but I can't wait for that information.
Excellent. Is there anything you want to add to that, Jan and Ollie? Well, like any little nuggets of information hot off the press?
Well, it was inspired by when we went on site, it became immediately obvious that there were two different categories of stone. You could say it's either red sandstone or grey sandstone. But the grey in particular, it was really fascinating because if you held it in sunlight, it was a beautiful stone. It was sparkling, you know, it's really an attractive stone. So that got us interested. And of course, because we knew so much with the SSD project, we thought, oh, we've got to look into this further. And the more we looked, the more we saw different colours in the stone. And so we thought, okay, different stones, different colours, different textures, they probably come from different quarry sites. So we're trying to relate that to what we know about, say, local stone quarries along the Eden or along, say, towards Wetherell, Constantine Cells and so on. But as you get further away from Carlisle, you go into a different sort of sandstone, the St. Bees sandstone, the red, that is characteristic, say, for Carlisle. So we're getting both stones and we're trying to, although we can't say exactly about the provenance, we're trying to link it as to stone category, what it could be, and so potential sites that are not too far from the bathhouse. So it's really interesting, it's really exciting, and we look forward to Frank receiving the report eventually. Well,
what I'd love to find out would be to link it to the Gelt quarries that have the famous Severan inscription. That would be another incredible thing to find, you know.
Yeah, well, you might be pleased, Frank.
Okay, good.
Yeah, but Frank, may I just ask at this point, you know the main drain that we found in Trench 1 and also Trench 3? Are you saying that that's Hadrianic?
The one in Trench 3 definitely isn't. That's Severan.
That's Severan. The one in Trench 1, the main one that what?
Well,
I thought
I think one of them potentially is Hadrianic.
Yeah.
But the other one that joins onto it is definitely Severan. So
Yeah.
I think we've got one Hadrianic drain. The drains from 2017 from the latrines that I didn't mention, again, they're Severan. But it's so heavily robbed that it's, if you told me all those drains were Severan, it would still work stratigraphically. It's just everything's been robbed at least 3 times. So we've just got that island of drains. What you couldn't see from the photo I showed you was on every other side, it's been cut by a huge quarry pit.
Yeah.
You almost got pillars of archaeology surviving.
The colour of the stone in Trench 1.
Yeah.
What colour was it, Frank?
Grey.
It was grey, was it?
Yeah.
And that's going right down into the trench. Because we didn't manage to get a sample from that, so that's good. It's good that you say that. We only managed to get a wee bit from the top.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
Great.
Just
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jan and Ollie. Excellent. For anyone who's interested in the source of the stone for Hadrian's Wall sort of across its entirety. One of our monthly community talks as part of WallCap, we had Dr. Katie O'Donnell, who's doing a PhD on that very subject. So if anyone wants to revisit that, it's all on the WallCap website under the speaker series, and you can just go and you can watch the YouTube clip of her presentation. So just for anyone who's interested in the source geology. Okie doke. Does anyone else have anything they would like to chip in with at this point? No? Just looking around who's on the call, if there's anyone I can pull out. No, I think we're good. Oh, Nick, go for it.
I just wanted to, because I don't know whether I've said this before, but just hats off to Frank as well, because I think he just didn't have a day off for months, essentially. So I just have to sort of need to reckon, because he's very good and very modest like that. But I just said I'd be remiss if I didn't say something, because he's really threw himself completely into that.
Great stuff. And also looking in the chat, thanks to you, Nick, for helping secure a lot of the funding for that excavation to go ahead in the first place. This is how, like Nick said, nothing we do along Hadrian's Wall is I, it's always a we, because we have to work in partnership. It's the only way that these projects can come off, and also the added value of lots of partners involved, and sharing whatever we find out, so we can all, it's referring back to what we've talked about today about being part of one big team, and bringing all those skills and enthusiasm and things together.
Yeah, I can say the same. Thank you, Nick. He's brilliant at doing that boring stuff, filling in forms for lottery bids. He's not so good at sorting T-shirts, is what I can say.
We've all got our skills and our drawbacks.
April. I've got an April. I did have an October one and then a December one, so that will, yeah, that will happen.
Great stuff. Anyone else? Final comments, questions? Right, I'm going to wrap this up then. Frank, thank you so much for taking the time out today. And can I just say, this is the first time Frank's ever used Zoom. So I'm just impressed that you managed to get past, especially all the technical problems at the start. So thank you for that.
No problem.
And thank you for, like I say, taking the time out to present today. It's been great. People really did have an eye on what you guys were doing over at Carlisle. So it's really nice to bring this to a bigger audience. And we'll have more people watch this after on the, because it's recorded as well. So really, really, really appreciative of that. So
okay, well, I'm glad they enjoyed it and I didn't send too many to sleep.
No.